Okay, now that you understand the work that we are trying to accomplish with metacognitive assistance, and you have tools such as the Think Well, Learn Well diagram and the compendium of thinking skills to work with, and you also have assignments such as the ABCs of academic work to ensure students get off to a great start. Let's wrap all of this work into 7 steps you can follow. Now, think of these steps as guides to help you deliver the best metacognitive assistance as you're working with students. Step 1, provide context for the course. Use the course learning outcomes to provide context for the course. The learning outcomes provide context for the vast array of content students will be exposed to throughout the course. Students who lack context for their course are likely to get lost in the vast sea of content. However, with context settled for them, students have the clarity they need to do the work that is required. Step 2, assess students' thinking skills. Conduct a notes analysis to determine the types of thinking skills students are currently investing in their academic work. Students' notes provide useful windows into how they are thinking about the material they are attempting to learn. We know that the thinking skills students use will determine the outcomes their minds produce. So if the thinking skills students use don't match the thinking skills that they will need to activate on their assessments, then we know that they will be underprepared regardless of their capabilities or how much they study. When you are analyzing students' notes, you want to discern the modes of thinking they are using in their notes. Then you want to compare the modes of thinking they are using to the quality of thinking that's needed to produce the course outcomes. Step 3, get students to think properly in your presence. A powerful metacognitive experience for students is to show them how they can change the outcomes their minds produce by simply changing the thinking skills they use to think about academic material. Students tend to engage in outcome stagnation. This is when they use the same thinking skill on a wide variety of academic material. So students who work hard to memorize material will do well on tests and tasks that are assessing them for memorization level outcomes. However, these students will not perform well on tests and tasks that are assessing for higher level thinking skills. Students must shift to outcome variation. This is the skill of producing different outcomes with the same content. If students are going to do well on cognitively complex material, then they must be able to activate thinking skills consistent with the modes of thinking that are being assessed. For example, consider the varied modes of thinking that students must use on this content. If students only use their memorization skills, then they will produce outcomes because that's how our minds work. But those outcomes will not match the outcomes that will be assessed. The experience of producing different outcomes with the same content by changing one's thinking skills is a powerful performance-enhancing experience. Step 4, reflect back. A key part of metacognitive work is making students more attuned to what is going on in their minds as they interact with information. By this point, students have engaged in some rich metacognitive activity. Now it's time for them to reflect on how the work they are doing in your presence differs from their default way of thinking of academic work. For example, you can use the following types of questions to prompt their thinking. Did you previously use the course outcomes to guide your thinking and learning? What were you previously using to gauge your learning? Were you previously consciously selecting your modes of thinking? How does this process of thinking feel different than your usual way of processing? You can ask students to verbalize their responses, or they can write them down or journal them, depending on the setting you're in. The key point is that you want to search for whether students have gone beyond the content and become more attuned to their own cognitive processing. Now that is metacognitive growth. Step 5, project forward. Have students forecast when, where, and how they will use these ways of thinking on upcoming material. This is a critical step because it's forcing students to put the practice into action in an independent manner. You may have to push students beyond vague statements. You want them to be specific. For example, notice how specific the student gets in the example on assignment B. Step 6. Assign students to use the skills in some meaningful way between now and when you see them again. And finally, step 7. Invite students to start the next session by sharing their experience. You can build forward from there. Here are some comments from students that have been down this road. You can expect similar comments from those you assist.